Welcome to another Mayor's Report. Here we are today at the American Fine Arts Foundry, located here in Burbank. And next to me is the owner, president, Mr. Brett Barney. Mr. Barney, good morning.
Good morning. Nice to meet you.
Could you tell us a little bit about the history of your business here, how long it's been here and what do you do here?
Yeah, well, I'm lucky enough to be the third owner of a 40-year-old business. And we've been here, I've had it for about 8 years. And what we do here is it's the foundry process you might see in industrial applications, but all we do here is the aesthetic application of the process, specifically just for artwork and creative product.
You know, one of the things that brought your company to my attention when I was reading the paper over the weekend, and I saw a couple articles in the LA Times as well as the Daily News, that you do something special here for the SAG Awards, the Screen Actors Guild Awards.
Yes, we do, and it's been a lot of fun. About 17 years ago, we were approached by the Screen Actors Guild to help them develop an award. We helped them select an artist that could put the project together, meet their design goals, and since then, we have been doing the project every year, and we produce them in advance for the show. They just picked them up yesterday to have them ready for this weekend's event, and it's really been a lot of fun. It's been a real collaboration with the organization, and it's nice to be part of a little bit of what really happens here in the creative industry.
And, you know, it's nice to have your business here in Burbank. Obviously, we call ourselves the media capital of the world, and SAG is obviously very high up there in regards to the media business. So let's take a little look around your business and show us some of the procedures that you go through.
We'll do that. I'll give you a quick tour, show you how it goes from raw material all the way through to the finished product.
Excellent. Follow us.
All right.
So, Mr. Barney, what happens? What magic happens in this room?
Well, this is really where it all starts. Once we've got the mold made, and you can see some in the background here, we then have to start each piece of artwork that goes through here. It starts as a wax. We make a wax positive out of the mold. It's a little bit of technical jargon for you, but essentially we're making a wax sculpture that looks just like the original. And so in this room, he's filling the mold up with layers of wax. And what we're trying to get to is a thin wall casting, because every casting we do, we try to use as minimal amount of bronze as possible. It keeps the weight down, it keeps the cost down for the customer. It also improves the casting quality. So he's got 24 years of knowledge on how to get just the right wax, and that's what we're doing in here.
Well, that's great. Now, after the mold is built, in essence, we move on to the next step, which would be what?
Well, from here we're going to go into the wax chasing room, and in that room is where we remove the seam lines off of the piece after it's taken out of the mold. And in that department, what we're really trying to do is make sure that the workpiece, the wax itself, which is going to be what ultimately becomes the casting in bronze, is as clean and as perfect as possible.
Well, let's move on and see the next step.
All right, let's go.
Oh, here we are with the next step.
Yes, so as I was explaining, what we have to do next is we have to remove the seam line. So this piece is freshly out of the mold, and as you can see here, there's a little bit of imperfection where the parting lines were in the mold. And what we're doing here is we're simply using dental tools and some hot wax tools and maybe some scraping tools to go and eliminate this line here and make it blend into the surrounding surface. That's one of the things that an art foundry is responsible for doing on behalf of the artist, is to get this as perfect as we can. In fact, a lot of places call this perfecting the wax. Everything builds from this point forward, so we have to take each step and make sure it's as good as it can possibly be before it advances to the next part in the process.
And now you mentioned that some pieces need to have 2 or 3 pieces that make the final product?
Yes, depending on how the piece is originally composed, we may have to section it into smaller pieces. If it was a large piece, for example, we have to put it into sections that can be handled by 1 or 2 people to move around. And also there's some design considerations in terms of how the piece will cast, and so we get a nice quality casting. We make determinations throughout the process what's the optimum way to do it. Sometimes we put the pieces back together in wax, sometimes we put them back together when they're in cast metal, and we re-weld them together at that point in the process.
Well, I tell you, that's an extremely interesting process that you're going through here. So from this standpoint, from this point, we go to the next step, which would be?
Well, from here we're going to do 2 things. We're going to do what we call gating or spruing the piece, and that's where we're going to create the channels that provide for the flow of the bronze into this when we're actually ready to cast it. And then after we've put the gates and sprues on it, we're going to actually put a coating on this, which is like a stucco material, and it's called a shell. That is a one-time use mold that is used to pour the hot molten bronze into, and we actually consume that in the process. It's completely used up, but it gives us the ability to get a very super quality, very good capture of the details and all of the texture.
Well, let's move on to the next step.
That's the next room over.
Okay, well, here we're in a room that looks like you've got like 3 sandboxes here,
Yes.
ready to be used by some kids. But anyway, what next process happens in this room?
Well, this is the room that we're actually making that shell. That's that one-time consumed mold that we use in the process. So what we're doing is we're building up. Initially, we want to capture all the detail that we've managed to put into that wax positive. Then what we're going to do is we're going to translate and transfer over to actually building up strength with the shell. And so what you'll see in this room is various stages of either picking up the detail or then fully getting the strength into the piece, so when we pour the molten bronze into it, it doesn't just blow apart. So behind us here are a few pieces that are sort of intermediate in the process that have maybe 4 or 5 layers of the shell material on them at this point.
So would this be a final product out of this room?
This is close. This probably has 1 or 2 more layers to go. Each layer takes about a day to dry. The reason you have the fans in the background here is to keep the air circulating. This is a room that we have to keep at the right temperature and the right humidity on a constant basis, so everything dries nice and evenly. We don't want any distortion or warping that happens. We want everything to just kind of go consistently.
Well, I'm amazed at the process. You know, I just the way things come together, and I know we're going to continue on to the finished product.
Yeah, we are. The next thing we're going to go see is the foundry area, so we'll show you what actually happens from here forward.
Excellent. Follow us. Okay, so this is an example of the finished product out of that room.
Correct. This is a shell. This is a shell that we've actually already melted the wax out of. So we call this the lost wax casting process. We've now lost the wax, and what we had done after this was shelled with this thickness of the material, it's got a lot of strength. We actually cut off the surface layer of that particular shell, and then we turned it over and we heat it up and let all that wax drain out, which is then recaptured and recycled through our vendor. So that part of it's a very green process. This piece is then going to get heated up to about 1500 degrees in an oven, and then the molten bronze will be poured inside of it, and that's where we're going to head next.
Excellent. Follow us. So here we are in the next step. This is where we actually do some pouring.
This is it. This is the foundry area. And this is where we actually take those shells that I showed you and get them ready to have the molten bronze poured into them. So the first thing that we have to do is bring those shells up to a hot temperature, about 1500 degrees Fahrenheit. And the reason for that is you don't want to pour the bronze in and then have a cold mold. It'll stop the flow of the bronze. So we want that bronze to flow nice and smoothly. So what we do is we raise the temperature of the bronze here in the crucible up to about 2000 degrees, plus or minus. And then we pull the shells out and we line them up here for pouring. And then quickly we get all the bronze poured into all of those shells. And it's really a lot of fun. This is really where it all comes together, and this is what people think of when they think of Foundry.
Yeah, this is where the show happens in essence.
This is it. Yeah, nothing like seeing that bright, glowing bronze molten in that crucible. You know, it's about 350 pounds of metal that's going off at once, and it's got just this really warm, beautiful color to it. It's really where I think people start to get in touch with the tactile nature of the bronze sculpture.
Well, no, that's great. And, you know, very exciting. Obviously, like you said, this is where it really happens. This is where it takes place, yep. The pouring of the bronze into the statue. this is more or less kind of where the final product is giving birth, in essence, because I know we've gone through the molding process, or the wax molding, but then here is where everything becomes reality.
This is where the wax is lost and the metal begins. And from here, what actually happens is we go into the metal chase department, where we start welding pieces back together, and we work on welding them and then finishing. We call it metal chasing, and getting all of the texture and all of the detail reproduced across all those weld lines, and making sure that the piece to the eye looks like it never was separated.
Like I said before, it's magic. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to the next step.
Let's go.
Here we are with Mr. Barney. This is the raw material. I mean, this is the bronze?
This is it. This is an ingot of the type of bronze we use to make the sculpture. You'll see how heavy that is.
Yes, it's quite heavy. Yes, yeah. It is.
So we buy this in these ingots, and this is what was in the crucible. We melt that down. We do about 350 pounds a day. And that's what ultimately becomes what you see here in front of you. This is the raw material, and this is the raw casting. And these are castings that have been cleaned up. That shell material has been cleaned off. And these are now ready for assembly and for what we call metal tooling or metal chasing.
So as we can see, it goes from the raw material to what we have here in front of us, and then it'll end up in another couple of stations for further refining.
Yeah, the next thing that's going to happen is to get all the metal put back together accurately and correctly, and then we prepare it to put the patina on, which is the final step in the entire process. That's where we color it and give it that look that makes a bronze so special.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next step.
Let's go.
Okay, Mr. Barney, could you explain to us this process?
Yeah, so this is what I was talking about, where we have to reassemble the piece. And this dog has so far had 3 of its legs welded back on. And you can see how nice and smooth we've been able to finish them out and hide all that detail. Still a little bit more work to do on this, but what we've done is made that seam line completely disappear after it's been welded. Here's one that still has to be attached. What our guys are going to do is they're going to put it in place here, line it up, and weld it back into place. And again, they'll then finish that weld out and smooth it just like they have on the other legs.
I mean, this is just amazing the way it comes together. I'm really impressed, and what you do here is great.
Well, every piece is handmade, and it takes about 10 people with specific skills in each department to make one sculpture a reality, and it takes about 6 to 8 weeks to get it done. Most people who buy a sculpture in a gallery have no idea the workmanship and the skill level and the talent that goes into making the piece. We've got people here that have been in this industry. Our average tenure in the art foundry business is over 23 years across all of our employees. So as owner for 8 years, I'm actually one of on the lower end of the scale. But we've got people who have been here, and this is their life commitment, is to be in this business.
Well, let's move on to the next step.
Okay, let's go take a look at patina.
Well, here we are in the next process. Pretty much what it looks like here is a finished product.
Well, this is where the finished product has been done at the bronze level. It's been assembled, all of the detail has been replaced, and it's made to look as perfect as we can possibly make it. Our job is to make sure when it's at this point that we've maintained the integrity of the original sculpture. So now it should look just like the clay that originally came in to be molded. It should now look the same in bronze. Now what we do is we take it from a monochromatic metal look and we put a finish on it. And that finish could be a traditional patina like they've been doing for thousands of years, using different chemicals to oxidize the metal, or we can put paints or dyes. We can do high polish processes. So I'll just walk you around a little bit and show you a few of the things that we do. Here's an example of a traditional patina done with some green and brown tones. This is a Frederick Hart piece that we just had to recently conserve and restore. The patina had weathered considerably, and they wanted to clean it up and make it look like new, if you will. Mm-hmm. Here's a piece that's using gold leaf and patina. The patina here on the base, but these are multiple colors of gold leaf that have been done to get different effects on the piece. This is a piece by Erte. Again, here's another piece with a traditional brown patina. And if we walk on over here, this is an elephant that's been completely high polished. And then right here behind you, it may still be a little bit wet, but this is a piece that's been done with a combination of patina and dyes to give really that translucency, and then it's been sprayed with a lacquer to give it the shine.
It's got the coloring on this side.
It does. It's really a beautiful piece. This is done by Scott Hansen. So I think you get the idea that there's really unlimited options available for the artist in terms of how they want the piece to look finally. Typically a more traditional or classical piece, maybe figurative, you're going to see a more classical patina, things they've been doing for thousands of years in bronze tones, brown tones, green tones. But as you get into maybe a more contemporary piece, you start playing with newer, more contemporary materials. And it's part of our job to work with the artist to help them match the proper coloring and technique with the spirit of the piece.
Well, there's a lot of spirit here. I can see that.
Yeah, it really is a lot of fun. It's nice to see the piece really come together at the final step.
This is because I've traveled and I've been into a lot of museums, and this is the type of pieces that you see at those museums. It's just amazing to me.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We've been in this business a long time, and we are well known for our ability to reproduce fine textures and details. We're probably one of the top 2 or 3 premier foundries in the country, if not the world. And we're right here in Burbank. We're sometimes kind of the best kept secret. The people that need to know about us do, but if you're not in the industry and you don't understand what goes into making a bronze sculpture, you'd never even know this process existed. And so it's a lot of fun to make this available for those that need it.
You know what? If we could go ahead and go see a finished product of the reason we're here, the Screen Actors Guild Awards, if you could show us that, it would be great.
Yeah, let's go on the other room.
So here we are with the Screen Actors Guild statuette that you're a very proud producer of, I guess you could say. So could you tell us a little bit about? We've seen the process, but now we have the actual statuette here in front of us in the different levels of production.
Yeah, what I put together here for you is just a little display to kind of summarize what we saw through the process. And for example, they call this piece The Actor, appropriately so.
Oh wow, I need to work out a little more. That guy's heavy. Oh my God, this means so much to me coming from you, SAG. So I'm gonna dedicate this to the downtrodden, the underserved, the underprivileged, overtaxed, whether emotionally, physically, or financially, and thank you so much. Oh my God!
They call this piece The Actor, appropriately so. And here we have the actor with his arms off. This is how it comes out of the mold. And you can see the seam lines that we talked about back there. So this is right out of the mold, and then we're going to be taking this and cleaning it up and getting those seam lines out of the way. We then had to sprue the piece and get it ready for shelling, and so these channels here provide the flow of bronze into the piece, and this is how it would actually pour. Just imagine it has that layer of stucco material on it. So the bronze is going to pour in through this cup, distribute evenly throughout the piece, and then we're going to let it cool and solidify. Then when the piece is done, it's going to it'll now be in bronze, and this is a multi-layer patina that we put on. It's got some dark undertones with the green on top. I know oftentimes on the actual awards show this comes out looking black, and people are surprised when they see it. They see that it's actually got a green cast to it. It's just oftentimes, I guess, the lighting makes that difference. But this is what the final piece looks like. This is what's actually handed to the winners of the Screen Actors Guild Award at the ceremony, and each one is signed, is numbered. It's part of an ongoing edition that they've been doing, and we've been doing it with them for about 17 years. It's really a lot of fun to be involved in these kinds of projects. It's nice to be part of the local community, but like I said, we've been at this a long time. We get invited to some really amazing projects. Behind me, there's 3 samples here of a Leonardo da Vinci piece, which has recently been released to the world. It's one of only a couple of sculptures that are known to exist by his own hand, and it's a real privilege to have been selected to participate in the production of those as this piece is rolled out to the world as well. So it's really a neat business. It's really been a lot of fun.
It sounds exciting, and I'm excited just going through, having you give us a tour. I'm very excited about it, and I'm even more excited that you're in Burbank. I mean, obviously, like you said, you're a kept secret, but the people that need to use you know about you, not only here nearby, Southern California, United States, but worldwide as well. So once again, I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your busy day to give us a tour and have the residents of Burbank enjoy the Fine Arts Foundry here in Burbank, which is the capital of media of the world. So, Mr. Barney, thank you very much for doing this.
You're very welcome. Really nice to work with you.
And that's another Mayor's Report, and we'll see you next time.